I think Gris is a masterpiece, and from what I see online, most people agree. But looking through the user reviews on Steam, I found more negative comments than I expected, and most of these comments address something similar. Gris is boring, tedious and boring gameplay. And of course the classic, very boring unless you're someone's mom. Right. But I was surprised to see how many people didn't enjoy this game. I had just spent 4 hours totally enamored with it. Gris was filled with everything I love, a minimal but at times powerful score, a grainy watercolor aesthetic, simple but satisfying platforming, and an effective emotional story. I hate to say it, but it legitimately made me sad to see people scoffing at a game I enjoyed so much. It made me feel defensive. Why do I think Gris is a masterpiece? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe Gris is just the perfect game for me. I was mostly drawn to this game for its unique art style, but its story, although gently told, is very effective. The game opens up with a colorful cutscene depicting Gris singing in the hand of a stone statue representing her mother. Gris loses her voice and the stone begins to crumble, dropping her down into a black and white world. This description from Devolver Digital sums up the game better than I could. Gris is a hopeful young girl lost in her own world, dealing with a painful experience in her life. Her journey through sorrow is manifested in her dress, which grants new abilities to better navigate her fated reality. As the story unfolds, Gris will grow emotionally and see her world in a different way, revealing new paths to explore using her new abilities. One more thing that Gris has going for it is that it's a fairly short game at around 4 hours. That was a big plus for me because I had a hard time sticking with longer games when I first played it. I was getting older and I thought maybe my brain was just growing out of its gamer phase. But the dramatic introduction to Gris had me hooked right away. The music in the first few minutes sort of tiptoes around as you move through this world devoid of color, but even in this colorless world, the beautiful art style shines. Gris's light blue hair pops as you move her through the black and white landscape to eventually reveal the first primary color in the game, red. Each color in this game represents a different stage in Gris's personal journey and signifies the start of a new area, usually accompanied by a new ability. Shortly after revealing the game's first primary color, you drop down into a slide, and the gentle piano keys that have been playing for the first 10 minutes of gameplay transition into a cascading waterfall of sound, and it's truly just beautiful. And I think the first 10 minutes of this game perfectly shows why the music works so well throughout the game. The Berlinists crafted an eerie, melancholic score that works as a tone setter in the background of the game's quiet moments of exploration, but so easily shifts into big, dramatic backing in more intense moments. Or it simply performs in partnership with the visuals and lets the player just sit back and enjoy the spectacle. Another thing I love about this game is how the traversal mechanics tie in with the overall narrative. The first ability you acquire is this little box move. Your first use of the box is to keep yourself from getting blown back by a strong storm. As Gris's narrative focuses on grief, I think this is a great representation of what it's like to work through the anxiety or depression that can come with grief. You've got to find ways to hold your ground. This redefines what making progress is. In difficult times, progress might mean moving forward slower than you're used to until the storm settles. The developers at Nomada Studios talk about how the dress works as a metaphor for how people grow in adversity.
Let's say that there is a few elements in the game that for us represent something. Like, for example, the dress could represent, let's say, the ability or how she grows and how she gains new things. That's something that happens to all of us in life. It's like new tools you get when you are growing, that it will help you to overcome problems.
Without the right tools, you will get knocked down again and again by the winds of anxiety. Doing the work to get the tools you need to face the challenges in your life is worth it, and maybe it even opens up new avenues. That's another thing that makes this box mechanic work so well with the narrative of the game. As you make progress through each level, you find new ways to use the box to interact with the world and work in tandem with other new abilities. When you first acquire the ability, you use it as an anchor against the environment, but you also find yourself using it in the same way as an anchor against the screech of this shape-shifting bird that follows you throughout the second half of the game. In another great example of connecting gameplay mechanics to narrative, you use a newly acquired double jump/glide ability along with the box to turn the bird's forceful screech into a propellant to move towards out-of-reach platforms. There are a few other uses for this box, like creating a physical platform for yourself in this ice section of the game, and knocking down little pieces of fruit in this forest area. This example highlights something else about Gris that I really appreciate. To progress through this area, you have to knock down these 3 fruits from the blocks so your new friend can chow down. Once you knock down the fruit for them, they can open up new pathways for you. The game delivers this information through the environment in 2 ways. One is this little jiggle you can see when you land on the blocks with fruit. Most people that have played a few video games will likely know this means that those objects are movable. Even from earlier in the game, you see a similar shake when you move over cracks in the ground that can be destroyed. The other clue the game gives you is scattered along the ground leading up to and in this area. You can see a bunch of these fruits have already been eaten. These 2 small details, along with the wide camera shot in this scene, suggesting your new friend is a part of the solution to moving forward, are how the game gives you information. It wasn't super tough to figure out what I had to do here, but I came away from this area with a small sense of discovery and interactivity with the environment. And I think that sort of thing is what makes the world in Gris feel so rich. But to be honest, the first time I played this game, I didn't really think too much about what I was playing outside of the tranquil music and the beautiful visuals. The game had been taking me on a sensory ride that I was deeply into. Even just the color palette perfectly appeals to what I like. I mean, just look at these prints I have in my apartment. And we aren't stopping there. Look at the shirt I'm wearing right now. So anyway, these visuals were just right for me. And I was enjoying the gameplay, but the visuals and the music were what sold me hard on this game. I hadn't been picking up on too much of the story though. Then, about 2.5 hours into my playthrough, there was one moment that really got me. After revealing yellow, the last color in the game, you get a button prompt. Gris assumes a singing posture, but nothing comes out. She's trying to sing, and she can't. I just lost it. For a few months before I played Gris, I had been having some trouble breathing. At first, I tried not to think about it too much, but I couldn't help stress over it, and it just progressively got worse. But after finally going to the doctor, I found out that my breathing problems were due to anxiety, which explains why breathing got more difficult the more I started to worry about it. It wasn't a good time. So, seeing Gris fail to summon the strength to use her voice hit close to home. Obviously, it's not a perfect comparison, but for some reason, it felt intensely personal to me when I realized what was happening. My connection to this game has felt uniquely special since that moment. A few weeks after finishing the game, I booked an appointment to see a counselor for the first time, and I started having an easier time with my breathing. So after experiencing the revelation I felt like this game was, it absolutely bummed me out. There was a group of people that summed up their experiences with the game as boring. Now, I can rationally understand that not everyone likes what I like. That shouldn't affect me, but it does. It sucks to hear someone else scoff at something that meant so much to me. Am I dumb for letting this boring game bring me to tears? I mean, no, of course not. But why do I feel like my reality with this game is being threatened by someone else's opinion? Other people's opinions shouldn't change how I feel about this game. Or more importantly, they shouldn't change how I feel about myself. Because ultimately, I made this channel and I make videos because analyzing my favorite games helps me know myself better. Analyzing my favorite art helps me understand myself. But not everyone approaches games the same way, and of course, my perspective on this game is unique to me. I've lived for 25 years developing my taste in music, visuals, and gameplay, and I came to Gris at one of the most vulnerable times in my life, and it helped me. I know that's not everyone's experience with it, but it was mine. It's also not news that discourse in the video game community can get too personal. Over the last year, we saw gaming discourse at its worst with the conversation leading up to and following the release of The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us and the characters from it felt precious to a lot of fans, and it was personal to see the story play out in a way they didn't appreciate. Laura Bailey and Neil Druckmann both took to Twitter to respond to some of the vitriol being thrown their way. Early leaks of some key moments in the game outraged some fans. There was a huge wave of the anti-SJW crowd that came at the game and the people responsible for it with some pretty extreme hatred. Critics and YouTubers received loads of hateful comments, causing some, like Alana Pierce, to stop streaming the game altogether. So it's good to feel a personal connection to a piece of art you love. I think that's a great mode of self-discovery, and obviously I relate to that feeling. So I get being bummed when other people don't feel the same way about your favorite thing that you do. But when those feelings turn into rampant toxicity against performance capture artists, developers, critics, or YouTubers, or just anyone who has a different opinion on the thing, it isn't innocent anymore. Gris is a game about a journey through grief and the personal growth that comes with it. Gris persists by holding her ground, opening up new paths by both delving into the depths and reaching for new heights. And by the end, she rediscovers her voice and accepts her grief in order to move on. Although I don't relate directly to the grief of losing a loved one, the anxiety and the darkness that comes with grief is something that I think we can all find some familiarity with. At least that's what I'd like to think. That everyone that plays Gris would be able to open up and have a similar experience to mine. But I know that's just not how people are. I guess what I'm trying to say with all this is that I think Gris is a masterpiece. And if you don't agree,
then I disagree with you. It's kind of embarrassing for you. Like a big YouTuber, just like thinking you're dumb.